Hello and welcome to the TMZ podcast with me and Branson and Sam and Tony. Thank you for joining us. Good to be here. Today we're going to talk about I think, a big development in the Nancy Guthrie case. It's been a while since we've broken anything to do with her disappearance, and God, must be just hell for the family. But this morning we're learning that the Pima County Sheriff, Chris Nanos, is worried that the suspect will strike again, could strike again. They say that, they believe that it was targeted and that, these people are dangerous, obviously, and still out there. And they say they're getting closer towards finding out who it is or getting at least a person of interest or a suspect. They say they're getting close to that point, but now they got to work on it. The exact quote was, "We believe we know why he did this, and we believe that it was targeted, but we're not 100% sure of that. So it'd be silly to tell people, yeah, don't worry about it. You're not his target. Don't think for a moment because it happened to the Guthrie family, you're safe. Keep your wits about you." I don't know that I feel that comfortable living around that area. I guess it could happen anywhere, but living around that area close to where this happened, it looks like it was targeted. I think if you lived around there, you'd probably hope that it wasn't just random because maybe you'd be next. There's a lot of bad people out there.
I think that you think about it. He thinks whoever did this once, got away with it with a celebrity, someone super big and high profile. What's stopping them from doing it with someone normal?
And this probably wasn't the first time they'd done it. If they pulled it off to this degree with this much scrutiny, I still can't believe the best cops in America haven't been able to even put a dent in this case.
I know, and we found Osama bin Laden,
And we found Osama bin Laden.
Let's read out some comments.
Okay.
Give the people what they want here. So L. Michelle said he is a serial kidnapper. I guarantee you she is not the first one he took.
Yeah, how do you get away with it this clean with everyone in America looking for her? With most cases, it doesn't cause this much news, obviously. And so it's one would have thought it's easier to get away with stuff when the eyes of the country aren't on you. But if he pulled it off to this degree, then yeah, one would think that maybe he's a professional. I don't know. I've always been maybe home invasion gone wrong. But man, I think we'd have those answers.
Julie asks, "Good morning. Do you think Nancy is still alive?"
No.
No?
I don't.
Here's there's still a chance. You never know.
It'd be the craziest Hollywood twist if she was discovered alive.
You have those kidnappings of little girls, and then it's 10 years later they find them.
This is an 86-year-old woman who needs her medication.
That's true.
And there was blood found. There was her blood. There's a few things we know for sure. And one of the things we know for sure is her blood was found on the doorstep of her house. Blood splatter. You guys have probably seen it if you're tuning in today. And so it's an 86-year-old woman who's injured, who's been abducted from her bed in the dead of night. And I hope she was even abducted alive rather than maybe something happened at the house and they took her, a body with them. But it's just been so long. How's it been? It's been over 40 days? February 1st.
40 days.
So it's been about 40 days.
40 nights.
Man, it must be just so grueling for the family. And what do you do now? Now that the public's attention has shifted to other things, you can't stay on the news can't stay on the same topic forever. They stayed on Nancy Guthrie for a long time.
Do you think that Savannah should have paid the ransom?
Nah. But because clearly
I would have paid it.
Okay, well then you'd be out. How much money? You'd be out $4 million Bitcoin.
but then I'd be out $4 million. Even if I don't get them back, I'm not regretting not trying.
But they didn't do anything. Nothing happened because of the ransom note. Okay, ransom, we didn't pay. Now, have they killed her? They didn't say, okay, fine. They didn't,
they said that this will be the last communication. And
it was clearly fake.
Your consequences.
To me,
again, I don't want to resent what I didn't do. And if I'm a millionaire, pay the money and move on.
Nah, you can't get defrauded that easily. That's
and
too
now
easily.
She's offering $1 million, and that still hasn't been taken
because no one has information.
I'd rather I'd spent the money on the ransom.
But you don't think if someone knew now, say that person who was doing the ransom is real, and they do know about Nancy Guthrie, wouldn't they try to get their million anonymously right now by giving information?
Yeah. Well, maybe now that she's passed, they're like, never mind, I'm not doing that.
But the $1 million is for her, dead or alive.
That's true. I don't know.
I just think that no, you can't be paying ransoms, and also no one ever gave proof of life.
Don't want to negotiate with terrorists.
That's true too.
Says,
But they would have. I think they would have. They said contact us, and they never did. There was no proof of life.
I read something. I don't know if this is true, but I read something that in past cases where there's a ransom, the FBI has paid the ransom before to find them.
Right.
I don't know how big it was, but I read the FBI.
I could imagine that
has done that.
If you could trace something and then
trace it further,
because maybe if you have a suspect who you think it is, and then you pay a ransom, and then they buy a new car, you're like, gotcha.
Let's get more comments here.
Yeah. So people really are still in tune with this story because I wasn't sure if people had kind of moved on.
Are very high today.
Wow, I love that there's still the hunt out there for this. That's
Someone
great.
believes this is the cartel, saying this is out of a cartel play poker. They looked into that.
They looked into it, but they don't know anything. I think the fact that the ransom note becomes such big news and the FBI was, investigating the ransom note was because they didn't have anything else. You know what I mean? I think it was a red herring, but it was the only thing they had. They had no evidence. It's just crazy. The best cops, zero dent in the whole case. I just can't get over that. Were these the best, cartel, the best kidnap ever? Well, clearly no, because you saw the guy's face on the Ring camera. How can you see the guy's face and that's the only sort of evidence we have? It's just mind-blowing to me. I hope we figure this thing out. But what will likely be, I think, is, many months or years down the road, someone who knows something blabbing about it or to someone they shouldn't. Or maybe people break up and an ex is I don't need to keep your secret anymore. Or something like that, communication, somehow someone will be loose-lipped. That's how I think it'll happen down the track, though.
Someone's theory here. Kristen Sky said it could be a lone wolf who went to rob her and took her to the bank, and she passed on the way. That's why they're not reaching out.
Was taking her to the bank?
I've heard of cases like that where they go in the middle of the night and then they take the person to the bank to make a withdrawal at the ATM.
Don't they have cameras on the ATM?
I know, but someone said that maybe they passed on the way.
Well, I guess you can send that person out to the ATM by themselves.
Yeah,
and you don't be on
that
camera.
happened in a wild case. Where do you remember that case where the robbers went to a family of 4, I believe it was, and just did the most atrocious killing ever, set them all on fire.
Oh,
took the mom to the bank to make a withdrawal.
Yikes!
And came back, and then it was the worst thing I've ever read in my life.
Okay, well, so I mean, if that's something that happens, I don't have any more ideas than. In fact, I'm getting more confused. I was beating the drum that this was a home invasion gone wrong, for the fact that in the Ring doorbell footage, this person doesn't expect there to be a Ring doorbell there. How do you not know that? If you're the best cartel, if you pulled this off so well, you didn't expect there to be a Ring doorbell, so you have to pick up shrubs and try to, why didn't you bring something to put around the camera if you, it said dumb to me. And it said also they were so casual walking up to the house. It's not like they were cat burglars, trying to, in the dead of night, no, the guy was just meandering up to the house. Oh, there's a camera. Oh, shrubs. What? That said not planning to me. And I can't square that this is a highly planned sort of cartel or professional operation that you were just, meandering up to the house and then got the shrubs.
Or maybe he's just so good at it that he thought, oh, camera, maybe I should cover it.
You think? I don't
He was
think.
so covered up, they still don't know who he is.
And we have his face. Like, it's like...
And for that reason alone, who cares if there's a camera or not? Even if they had the footage of Nancy coming out of the house, would that have helped, you think?
Well, whoever did it turned that off, so they didn't want it. Yeah. Whoever did it put the shrubs over the camera because they didn't want the camera.
Footage of, like, if you think about it, the Ring camera has audio, right? So if they covered the Ring camera, did he disconnect it before he took her out of the house?
Maybe.
No audio of, like, the sound of it, happening.
Do we have the sound of the shrub incident? The sound to that video? I thought that was kind of silent.
I think he disconnected it before he took her out of the house.
So if you're going to go to that trouble to disconnect the camera because you don't want to be seen, then why not know about the camera to begin with? You disconnected the camera while you're inside. Why not, like...
Devin's here.
Yo.
Devin's here.
What's up?
What's up, man? How are you?
Good, man. How are you?
Good. Just discussing the Nancy case.
Yeah, I see that.
Day 40-something.
You guys break it wide open?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're working on that.
Okay.
So we're going to do the Nancy Guthrie story. We'll also reveal who's going to be in the new Baywatch reboot.
Oh.
They just announced their cast. Beautiful cast. Not a lot of actors and actresses in the cast, though.
Influencer types?
Influencer types. That's the way of the world, though.
Wow. Took the words right out of my mouth. The way of the world.
And finally, we will reveal how bothered or unbothered Scooter Braun is about Tom Brady, a.k.a. the GOAT, banging his wife.
Love it.
So, should we get to it? All right. We've got a lot of people viewing, Devin, so
okay.
Perk up.
Let's do it. Let's do it, man.
Here we go. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to the TMZ podcast. I'm Charlie Cotton. This is Devin Rowe.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. Good to be here.
Yeah, we made it.
Another successful week.
Yeah, I mean, I was on my deathbed for most of it. So I wouldn't say this week was very successful, but...
But you're finishing it out strong.
Yeah, I feel a lot better today.
Pleased to hear that, mate.
Yep.
Well, we may have some big news in the Nancy Guthrie case, finally.
Really? That would be news to me.
Yeah, but it's not like, what you might hope. The Pima County Sheriff said that the suspect could strike again and everybody should kind of...
Beware.
That's pretty gnarly.
Hey, man, stop doing interviews. Get to work.
But maybe he's trying to warn people, like, be on your best, like, lock your doors, la la la. You know what I mean?
People should do that anyway.
Not in these places.
You leave your doors open?
Not in LA.
Okay.
But in this sleepy little town.
Sleepy? You been to Tucson?
Well, I've heard podcasts where they describe this as a community where people like, you leave your door unlocked and you trust your...
Trust your neighbor.
Yeah. Not anymore.
Damn.
Which is crazy because they don't have the guy, obviously, but they think they know what type of guy it was. We'll also talk about the Baywatch reboot because there's some very interesting additions to the cast.
Very interesting. I'm gonna look at the cast right here.
You like the cast?
I like some of the cast members, for sure.
All will be revealed. And finally, Scooter Braun. Tom Brady was seen taking a young lady out of a party recently, and it was Scooter Braun's ex-wife.
She's a woman.
She's a woman, Yael, and what a woman.
Yeah, she's very beautiful.
And Tom Brady might be banging Scooter Braun's wife.
And him and Scooter are boys, right?
So bro code type stuff. We know
you probably don't subscribe to that.
I never subscribe to the bro code.
That's not shocking at all.
I don't have a code with you. Are you serious? It's every man for himself.
You're selfish. You have no moral compass.
Right. But Scooter's spoken up about it to TMZ. Went live.
I don't think he has. I think we've just heard from sources.
Oh,
sources connected.
It's sources connected. Okay.
Yeah.
We're live, so we can't unedit that. No, we can't edit that or that. If you're on YouTube, leave your comments. We'll talk about it in the end of the show if you're lucky.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're on Spotify and that, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Seriously, guys.
Just what's going on with you, man?
The Pima County Sheriff gave an update on the Nancy Guthrie case. And
Sheriff Chris, is it Nanos? Nanos?
Sheriff Chris Nanos.
I haven't heard from this guy in a little while.
Well, he hasn't been there to deliver good news.
Right.
He hasn't given us any good news. He's basically saying, if you live in the community, beware. This is what he said. We believe we know why he did this, and we believe that it was targeted, but we're not 100% sure of that. So it'd be silly to tell people, yeah, don't worry about it. You're not his target. Don't think for a moment because it happened to the Guthrie family, you're safe. Keep your wits about you.
What a ridiculous statement.
Why? Tell me.
He said, we believe we know why he did this and we believe that it was targeted, but we're not 100% sure of that. Okay, well, then why say that? It's like, what are you saying, bro?
He's saying that.
He's saying lock your doors. Cool. I'm sure every sheriff in every town in America has that same sentiment.
Yeah, but basically what he's saying is this could have been a random attack, right? This could have been, he's saying it could have been, there's a percent chance at least. No, he's saying there's no percent chance.
What he's saying, or what happened here, is he got called into an interview and he had to say something. So he just got up there. It's like me when I I'm not ready for a presentation.
Every day on the podcast.
Yeah, but like here, but more so like back in school when it's like, oh, I didn't like get ready for my presentation, but I have to go up there and just kind of like just talk out of my ass. That's what he did.
Well,
you see it as anything more than that? He went up there and had nothing positive to say, so he just said a bunch of words.
But saying that the suspect could strike again, like that's dangerous if he doesn't actually believe it, right?
Is it? I mean, he's just telling people to like watch your P's and Q's and lock your doors and like be extra careful. I feel like every household should be that way.
He said,
not continue on.
No, but not in this community.
I mean, I don't know Tucson.
They think it could be random.
Tucson.
It obviously says that there's a percent chance they think it could be like a random guy that could strike again randomly to you.
But I thought from the jump they were saying that this was targeted.
Well, they still do think that.
Do they? He said they're not 100% sure.
He said we believe.
Are they 100% sure of anything?
Well, no. And
it's infuriating. That's the word I was going for. Just because it's like, I think about this family. It's how many days now? 40 days. And like the current age of technology, they put all the best people on this, and it's like not even one like crumb of evidence that seems like they're getting anywhere close to finding who did this or where she is.
How is that possible?
And how mad would you be that then he's doing an interview if you're the family and he's like, hey, if you live in Tucson, this might not have been targeted, so watch your back. Like, I'd be like, dude, what?
But what should he do? What do you
not do interviews?
So no interviews.
If someone calls me and I'm the sheriff of Tucson, I'm like, we're working on the case. I'm not sitting for interviews until you have something that is either credible to say in the case, or you have a piece of information you'd like to put out there that might lead to you to getting more tips. So other than that, don't talk to the press.
You're accusing Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos of being like a thirst trap, basically.
I don't know. I don't know if I'd say a thirst trap, but I would just say a guy that like isn't turning down interviews, that like NBC clearly reached out to talk to him. If you have nothing to say, just be like, we have no updates. Sorry.
Right.
That's how I feel about it.
So right now they're currently examining an internet outage that happened around the foothills that night.
Yeah, I saw that story. I didn't totally understand.
And whether a Wi-Fi jamming device might have been used in the house. So I guess there's a device that you can go in and turn the Wi-Fi off in the house. That might hurt her.
Yeah, I've seen some videos of like showing it, like it's like some type of machine. Dude, my Wi-Fi goes out every other day.
But if it is at the actual time, that would speak to a very professional operation. If you have a Wi-Fi jamming device.
Well, yeah, I mean, you see the guy. I mean, it wasn't like that. They were like, or the guy in the video was fully clothed. Like he didn't look amateur to me.
Yeah.
It didn't look like just some Joe Schmo guy that was just trying to like steal their like valuables in the home.
Well, now you are actually echoing the Pima County Sheriff. He's basically saying the same as you.
Don't compare me to this guy.
It's actually, you guys actually have a very similar take that, you know, you believe that it was targeted, but there's a slight chance, right? It could have been not targeted. For me, the guy just dawdling up to the camera and didn't know the camera was there and put the shrubs around the camera, that doesn't speak to professional for me. Never did. So that's why I have, you know, room in my mind that this might be some random home invasion gone wrong.
You got a lot of room in your mind.
Too much.
Yeah.
Actually, some say it's a bit dense. isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Well, I hope they get a lead soon.
Yeah, man, for real.
It's been over a month.
Livy Dunn is joining Baywatch alongside Brooks Nader. So these two non-actresses are going to star in this series. And
Whenever they continue, I'm cutting you off. Continue.
I was just going to talk out my ass really long.
Oh, well,
you
I
did
was
interrupt.
Yeah, okay, so you want me to interrupt. I just feel like with all these reboots, whenever they do this and they're like, oh, this is what we got to do. We got to get like who's hot on TikTok, who's like on Instagram model. We got to throw them in because, all their followers will then watch. You know what that means? The show sucks.
Well, they haven't made the show yet. Maybe it's going to be great.
But like it's going to end like when you get a bunch of people who aren't actresses and they're just like TikTokers and hot, it's like, to me, that means the show's not going to be good.
Well,
I mean, I hope I'm wrong.
Livy Dunn is another level of hot.
Oh yeah,
That's Brandon.
I don't know if I would say another
But
level.
I agree
Yeah.
with you, but it bridges the gap of like if they're so hot.
Oh,
the show is good.
Hassie Harrison is in this.
Who's Hassie Harrison?
We looked up Shay Mitchell. And
Okay,
she's also
now
hot.
I'm in. Isn't Hassie Harrison the girl from Yellowstone?
Is she hot?
Very.
Guys,
Okay, then we're
newsflash,
good.
they're
Very.
shooting Baywatch and the girls are hot.
Yeah,
Okay, great
yeah,
story.
yeah.
Red
that's-
bikinis. That's all you
No,
need.
but this
That's what
Hassie
Baywatch
Harrison
is.
girl, she's actually a good actress. So I might have to take back my take.
It kind of creeps me out that Branson's so into Livy Dunn. It seems like
I mean,
predatory.
that's so. What do you mean? That's so on brand for him.
It is. Is she really
Yeah, it is,
conservative?
right?
Does she have tattoos?
I
Who?
don't
Livy
think
Dunn?
so.
Livy Dunn. There's no way she has tattoos. I
There
don't.
you
I don't-
go.
But that's
You
your,
don't like a girl with tattoos.
Every tat is 4 bodies. That's what they say.
what does that mean?
Never mind. Moving on.
He's basically saying like if you have a bunch of
If you have a
tattoos, you're
tat,
slut.
you have a history.
Oh,
What a what a terrible.
What a take, Branson. What a
My
unprofessional
wife
take.
zero
I hope
tattoos,
my mic was
but
not on.
I like tattoos.
I like tattoo too. My wife has 1 at the moment, or 2, 3, actually maybe 3. She just keep out.
where?
She's in.
Is that an inappropriate tattoo?
No. She's got I think she's got 1 on her forearm here, and then maybe 1 or 2 like on her.
That's
arm
fine.
as
That's
well.
fine. I'm talking about like when they have like the big flower stems all over their shoulder.
The flowers bugs me. It's like what the hell's
okay,
a flower,
This
bro?
is
But
not,
if
this
they're-
is not Harley Davidson motorcycle hour.
The flower.
I love Harley Davidson motorcycle hour girls.
I will say the flowers. I'm always like, come on, what the hell is it?
It's got to be significant, but like not too significant. No big quotes. You know what I mean?
You don't want to do. You don't want to do too much reading.
No, I've never been a reader.
Yeah, that's true.
Girls with tats. Okay.
I don't know
interesting.
how we got here because I don't think any of the girls on Baywatch had tattoos. Did they?
No. Okay, so here we go. Here are the cast. Stephen Amella's Hobby. Hobby's going to be David Hasselhoff's son. So if you follow the original Baywatch, the David Hasselhoff, big guy.
I didn't. I think that was before our time, right? Like I know what Baywatch is, but have you ever seen an episode? I've never.
I've seen excerpts.
And I get that they're like lifeguards, but like besides that, like how much? What can you do from that? They're just at the beach all day and they're hot. Like
Yeah.
I don't. What's the plot line?
Who cares is the plot line,
okay,
bro.
Okay.
I actually got Carmen Electra at the airport recently.
That is one of my goats.
Like a fine wine.
One of my goats.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Yeah, she did the slow motion run for me. She auditioned
Wow.
for me.
And did you give her the role?
I did.
You'll do anything to talk about one of your clips, huh?
Bro, I mean,
No, this is topical.
I'm the celebrity whisperer.
No, that's actually a good poll.
Question. Do you think that you would be the best in the world at what you do?
No.
I do.
Do you?
Yes.
I don't. But
You
how?
think-
But how do we judge that?
I'm asking
It's
you.
also a very niche thing. though.
Okay.
It's a
Do you
very
think
niche
there's-
thing. Do you?
Is
How
there
many?
anyone else better in the world at interviewing celebrities on the street and making headlines?
You're just saying this.
Yes
because
or no?
Because I've told you you're good at your job.
But am I the best in the world? Would you say?
I haven't been all over the world though.
But from what you know,
You are the best at LAX.
from what you know, I'm the best in the world. Do you know any better in the world?
Not by name, no. You're good at your job, man.
Aren't I though? Thank you. Stop it. Okay, should we go to the next story? Scooter Braun claims. Oh, let me do that again. Insiders claim that Scooter Braun is unbothered by Tom Brady, the GOAT, potentially banging his wife, Yael.
So yeah, the story was, I guess last week Tony Gonzalez had a birthday party. You know him? Tony
Yeah, this is a web as well. There's a whole web.
It's bizarre.
Give me the people in the place.
Yeah, so it was at Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's house. It was for Tony Gonzalez's birthday, who is Lauren Sanchez's ex-husband.
Yes.
So that's it's weird to like have your birthday party at your ex-wife's
new
husband's home, but it's probably a sick house. So, and they all obviously have a good relationship because they're always on like yachts together, and they have, I think, Lauren and Tony, I think, have kids.
I think they do too.
So I think they co-parent, and anyways, they're at this party, and Tom Brady's there, and apparently he's at the bar with Scooter Braun's ex-wife, flirting. That's what insiders are saying, and then they left the party together.
Wow.
So I take that for what it is.
I will. They banged that night.
See, I don't know if you can jump to those conclusions.
You told me to take it as I want it.
Okay, take it. That's true. I gave you to take it as you want it.
Who's saying no to that? If they left the party together, who's saying no to banging? Is Tom saying turning Yael down or Yael?
Depends, because this is the whole debate. Is because obviously Tom Brady and Scooter Braun, I'm not sure how close they are, but they're friends. They were like at the same, partying over in Italy for the Bezos wedding. Like they've been spotted numerous times together. They're like boys.
Scooter was at the Bezos wedding?
Yeah.
But he wasn't invited to this birthday party at the Bezos house.
Because it was for Tony Gonzalez's birthday.
Because his ex was going to be there and he didn't want to see his ex. Why was Yael there? Was she at the one over in Italy?
She was not, because remember, that's where Scooter Braun met Sydney Sweeney. This is such a tangled web.
Isn't it?
Very tangled web, but it does make sense. These are all the most rich and famous people in the world. They just hang out with each other. They don't hang out with me and you.
So if Scooter is really dating Sydney, which we know for fact, and Yael's maybe banging Tom Brady, which we don't know as fact, who's doing better? One of them's got the goat. One of them's got the goat.
I would say Scooter. And just to get back on track on this story, a lot of people are being like, "Oh, is Scooter upset about this story coming out?" And what we're being told is that he's completely unbothered by it. Is like in a happy relationship. He's obviously moved on. Him and his wife have been divorced. They have kids, but he doesn't care that his friend is possibly banging.
So he says.
I mean, I subscribe to bro code, though. I just feel like if you're Tom Brady and there's a billion girls in the world that you could hook up with, why of all people would you choose your boy's ex-wife?
Because you don't really choose it, is the argument. You can't fight love.
You're calling this love, bro?
You can't fight it sometimes.
But it's not even like, it's like if I have all the options in the world and like your boy's ex-wife is hot and like kind of coming on to me, like I would be like, no, I'm good. Although
but then you might miss out.
It really depends on how close you are to the person, though. Because I don't
or how much you want to be with the girl.
I don't subscribe to bro code if like a girl, like if you kind of know the guy. It's if you're close buddies with someone, all his exes are off limits.
But what happens if you really fall for it? Let me give you this hypothetical. What happens if your current wife used to date one of your friends? Would you have never gone near her, even if you saw her? And
I think I would have had pause.
But then you would have?
I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. Because it also could say about the bro code that I ended up with someone that didn't know any of my friends.
Yeah, but I mean, I think if you saw Melissa anywhere, in any situation, you're like, it needs to be us. We're soulmates. You know what I mean? I have to break bro code for soulmates.
The fact that you're weaponizing my wife against my point right now is so ridiculous.
Okay, should we read out the comments?
Yeah, let's do it. The Guthrie situation. Greenland ex-media, do you feel like it may be someone close to them? No, I do not. I feel like that person would have been caught by now.
I agree with that.
Lori Cannon, what happened with her watch for proof of life? Why didn't they use that? So if I remember correctly, the watch was disconnected.
Like on the bedstand, was it?
Yeah, because the watch was disconnected at a certain time, and they used that to show the timeline because it was disconnected from the pacemaker.
Yeah, but the proof of life, the evidence that the ransom note provided that they were who they said they were, where they said that something was somewhere, and this was they gave crime scene type information that
that
wasn't
only a
available to the
person
public,
would have been there. But to me,
but
also,
no proof of life actually.
yeah. And also, it's like the whole ransom note stuff kind of went nowhere, which makes me think either they just stopped responding, or maybe law enforcement didn't take it seriously.
Well, but law enforcement was taking it seriously for a while. Like I always thought.
So were they just not response? Then you're just saying they think you think it was real. They just stopped responding.
No, I never think it was real. I just think that the cops had so little that they had to go off this like red herring.
Yeah, but I also think that that's good when you have nothing early on in a case. Shouldn't you take every lead seriously?
It proved that they didn't have any bigger leads, which was troubling, that they used this anonymous ransom note as their big one. It should have just been like something else they checked on. They should have been other, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect world, I would hope they would have had other leads, but if that's all they had to go on,
I was just like, I was worried.
Work on it.
I was worried even then that if they're using this as their big lead, it means they haven't got much else, which is bad.
I think a lot of people thought that. Sassy last Mel, so targeted, deflect from it being targeted, scare community that it's random yet randomized targeting. Got it. Yeah, I mean, he said a bunch of words, contradicted himself, and was like, stay safe out there, guys.
Yeah.
That's what he said. I mean, I know you wanted to talk about this story, but he said a whole lot of nothing.
He said that he might strike again, bro.
Okay, yeah, I could say that.
Yeah, but you're not the Pima County Sheriff.
But he also said what did he say? But he's not 100% sure.
Right.
And it could be targeted, but who knows?
Right. Might strike again.
Baywatch. Michael Baxter. I'm giving the Baywatch reboot a shot. Yeah, I'll tune in.
You'll tune in?
I'll tune in for sure. For sure.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it'll just be like mindless television, right?
Isn't it all like yeah.
where it's not. It'll be like a fun watch. So you can like.
But sometimes it surprises you.
See some hot bodies.
Hot bodies, but sometimes it does surprise you. You know, you tune in something like, oh, this is gonna be
my expectations are very low.
Very low, mine too.
Quinley121. Happy Friday the 13th.
No way. I thought it was Friday the 13th a couple of weeks ago.
It was. So we got hit like a couple times back to back. I'm not superstitious.
I'm trying to think about what happened that day.
If you're superstitious, then you're an idiot.
On Friday the 13th last time, I think I was in DC. It was a fantastic day. Went to Williamstown or Berg or something. Williams something.
The DC days, huh? You think you'll ever get back out there?
I don't know, bro. It was like the week of my life, and Harvey was like, that was the week of your life, Charlie. We want to send you back all the time. Haven't been back
since. I'm your Huckleberry. You think he just did that to like get your hopes up and just so he could like crush you?
I think he's just a man of the moment. He probably felt in the moment and then moved on.
Faded quickly. I'm your Huckleberry. I'm so shocked that Charlie doesn't like reading. Yeah, not the most shocking thing.
I struggle, man. I struggle.
Even growing up, I was a huge reader growing up. I just don't have time now.
I hated reading. I read way more now than I ever used to because I like read tweets and that sort of stuff. But a lot of them. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I do a lot of reading. You know, I've got to read this.
You read the notes they give you every morning?
As we're doing it.
Yeah.
Should we just end it, bro?
End like our lives?
No, the podcast.
Yeah, let's end the podcast. All right.